So highlighting and contouring. So many women that I talk to are so afraid of this because if you're around my age or older, this wasn't a thing when we were growing up. In high school, nobody highlighted and contoured. It didn't even exist. Even through the first few years of college, it wasn't a thing. So it can feel really intimidating and like, I don't want to get into it. So I've kind of come up with my own version of what I do. And I will do an in-depth video about individual contouring and highlighting later, but this is just to show you what I do pretty much every single time I do my makeup. This is how I highlight and contour, and you can totally recreate it, and I promise you, it's not scary and you can do it. First thing is I take Tarte Shape Tape. I have found that this gives amazing coverage, but if you apply it correctly, you can get it to where it doesn't build up and it doesn't crease and settle in fine lines and it doesn't look really heavy, but it still hides everything. I'm getting a little bit older. I have 4 kids. I don't sleep a lot. I need to hide these dark bags and this discoloration in here. And I want everything just to appear bright and like I have slept in the last 13 years. So that's where this comes in. I take a little bit, and here's the trick. You're gonna apply this. It has a doe foot applicator. I'm gonna put it right on my eyes, but I'm not putting it right up to the tear duct. Can you see that? I don't go all the way up to that tear duct, and I certainly don't go all the way up to my lash line. I apply it almost where my eyes kind of sink in and where those bags are. I do one little swoop on each, and then because I'm gonna brighten up this part of my face, I also wanna brighten up the center of my face. So I go down the center of my nose with just a little stripe. I'll kind of bring it on my forehead a little, on my cupid's bow, and my chin. That's where I'm going to highlight. Now I don't want to just leave this here. I want to create almost a reverse triangle. So without any additional product, I take the same applicator and I drag it down my nose, and then I lightly feather it out like that. And it may look a little scary, but because I'm not putting additional product on, it's really not that much. So can you see kind of the reverse triangle? I start here, I go down my nose, I go up towards the corner of my eye and across. So that's the area that we want really bright and highlighted. So we're gonna take our damp beauty sponge, and I'm gonna take the tip of it and I'm gonna place it right where I placed that highlighter, started, the same place that concealer started, and I'm pushing straight down. And I'm just pushing down, and I am just blending out the edges first. And once I get those edges blended into my foundation, then I will take whatever is left on the sponge and I will go right up under my eye with it. So I do get up under my eye and I do get to that tear duct, but I do not do it with a ton of foundation. It is just with whatever's left, and it just, boom. Suddenly, I've got a bright kind of flawless under eye, or at least it appears that way. Same thing over here. Start in the corner, I come down my nose, I blend out the edges first, up to my eye, and then I go right under my eye. I am not pressing hard, and I'm just pouncing it. I'm not dragging, I'm not pushing, I'm straight down, just pressing that concealer into my skin. I will do that with my nose, on my forehead, cupid's bow, chin. So I've got everything highlighted. Now that we have all those areas highlighted and brightened up, we want to set them with powder. With any kind of loose powder will work. I prefer a setting powder. My personal favorite is RCMA No Color Powder, because this doesn't get cakey, it doesn't have any color, so it's not going to change what I did. It's just going to set that. And the reason that you want to set it is because this concealer that we've put, especially under our eyes, can really settle into all the fine line and wrinkles, which will actually emphasize them more. And we don't want that. We don't want to emphasize anything up there. We want to kind of hide it and conceal it. Usually I do this and immediately set it without talking. But since I've been explaining things and talking and smiling and moving, all this concealer has now gotten into anywhere my face has crinkled. So I'm going to smooth it out first with the end of my beauty blender, and then I'm going to put the powder on. So I won't talk, but I want to show you really quick how I do that. Get all of it smoothed out. And then we're gonna put powder under there. And then with whatever's left on my sponge, I get the rest of the concealer and I kind of go across the rest of my face, just gently. Like I said, there's not a ton left on here, but enough that I have now set my foundation so that when I put my powder bronzer on, it will glide smoothly over this setting powder and not get stuck on the foundation. But it's not enough that it can build up and look cakey, because if you have dry skin, adding powder to it can dry it out more and emphasize it and actually make you appear older, and we don't want that. So I don't put a ton of powder all over my face. I concentrate where I put that concealer. I concentrate under my eyes a lot, and sometimes if I'm feeling like it's gonna be an extra oily day or if it's really hot outside, depending on the season, I'll put a little more powder right here in my T-zone. I seem to get the most sweaty and oily. I kind of have combo skin, so I'm not oily, I'm not dry, I'm kind of in between. But right here, my T-zone, down my nose and across my cheeks right here and my chin can get a little bit more. So sometimes they get a little extra powder just to set things to make sure they don't move. You wanna let that powder sit for just a few, not even a few minutes. It's a minute. I was gonna say a few seconds, but it's more than a few seconds, and it's not quite a few minutes. You wanna let it sit long enough to just kind of melt in. What it's gonna do is it's gonna get on that concealer and it's gonna just melt it all down into your skin for a super flawless finish that is just beautiful, amazing, and won't crease up and look cakey. So after I've let it sit for a minute, I take a big fluffy brush, just any fluffy brush will do, and I just gently wipe that away from underneath. I'm not pressing hard. I'm just getting that powder off, and I'll kind of just brush the rest of my face just to make sure we don't have any buildup anywhere. Voila. Now we're getting a little bit of dimension. We've got a little bit of light here instead of just a solid color, but now I want to add some depth in, and how I do that is with a bronzer. This is how I bronze and contour. I call it a bronze tour. And I take a bronzer that has no shimmer. If you're gonna do this, do it with a bronzer that has absolutely no shimmer, no glitter, and preferably that isn't super orangey. I love this one. This is Benefit Hoola Bronzer, and I love it because it comes in a couple different shades. This is the original. It also comes in light for you very fair skinned girls, and it comes in a new color, caramel, for you really darker skinned girls. So I love that it's got a couple shade varieties. But like I said, it has no shimmer, no glitter. It is a very matte powder, and it's warm enough to be a bronzer. It's not super ashy like a contour shade, but it's not orangey. It works beautifully to do both. And this is how I do it without it being scary or dramatic. So I'm gonna take just I almost threw it. I'm gonna take this angled brush. It's a fluffy angled brush. It's not a super large head on it, so it's not gonna cover a ton of area, but it's not teeny. Let me show you a comparison so you can see the brushes. So like this is a foundation brush. You can see how much area, space that's gonna cover, right? This is what I use for my highlighter. It's tiny compared to what can you see the three differences at all? This could cover a lot of area. This is gonna cover just a bit, and this is just a tiny, tiny bit. So we want this in between. We want kind of this in between type of brush because we want to cover our cheeks, but we don't want it to cover the whole thing, and we don't want it to be teeny tiny. I'm taking my brush. I swirl it around on my bronzer. I pat it off, and this is all you have to do. Ladies, this is all you have to do to contour. I'm gonna show you. It's easy as pie. You take your ear, the top of your ear right here, and you draw an imaginary line down to your lip, right here, just whoop. That's generally where you're gonna wanna place this. Same thing over here, ear to your lip, right in here. It's where your cheekbone is. You're going underneath your cheekbone. So you can suck in sometimes and see those, but you can also feel. Tap on your face, right there. I can feel my cheekbones right there. I can feel where my skin goes down underneath it. That's where you want this, right under that bone. You want to carve out that cheekbone to make it appear and pop. If you don't have cheekbones, you will after you do this. And if you have great cheekbones, this will be really easy for you to find. And after you find it on yourself, it's super, like, you'll be able to just pop this out really easy. It just takes a second to figure it out at first, but you're just putting it right under that cheekbone, not on top of it, not clear down your face, right underneath it. So all I'm gonna do is take my brush, and I have it at my angle, and I'm angling it. How am I gonna hold this? Yes, I'm angling it upwards. And I'm just gonna brush it right under that cheekbone. I stay back here in my hairline. I do brush it into my hair, and I stay in this back corner right there. That's the only place I'm gonna put it to start. This is the contouring part. Same thing over here. We're gonna brush it right under that cheekbone. We're gonna concentrate most of it back here in this back corner to really pop out that cheekbone. And now we have carved out. Can you see it? When I turn, you can see the cheekbone now. Now we're gonna bronze it. This is why it's not difficult, because most of the time you're doing this anyway. Take that same brush, and now I'm just gonna lightly place that bronzer kind of on my whole cheek. I'm gonna smile, and I'm just gonna swirl it up. I'm warming up that whole entire area. So on the apples of my cheeks and back, right to where I did that contour. I want warmth brought to this whole area, but because I'm kind of doing this swirling motion, the swirling and back, one, it's gonna warm up my cheeks, but two, it's gonna blend that harsh line that I just drew on so that it's not quite so harsh, and it's just a really warm cheek area. That's all you have to do. I'm gonna take a little bit because I put a little on my forehead. Now you can change the size, you can't change the size of your forehead. You can change how the size of your forehead appears by doing this. If you've got a really large forehead, if you bronze and contour a lot up here, it's gonna make it appear smaller. If you've got a really tiny, tiny forehead, I don't suggest doing this at all. Mine's kind of just an average in between forehead. So I put a little bit up in my hairline, right here, and then I will take it and I brush it under my jaw. I go right under my jaw, my chin, and I go across my whole jawline with it. And after I've gone across, I drag it down. You want to make sure you're blending down. So you're almost doing, and I'll put a little on to show you, you're almost doing a number 3. So you're almost going like this, or a backwards E. Does that make sense? So from here, cheeks, chin. That's all you're doing. I have now bronzed and contoured, and it wasn't scary and it wasn't difficult. And I have cheekbones and I've got some dimension. If I wanted to add a tiny, tiny bit, I could squish this brush with my hands and dip it in just a little and go down the side of my nose, just a tiny bit, and on the tip. We will do another video on nose contouring, but this is a basic contour that I do every time I do makeup. Like I said, sometimes it gets more intense, sometimes I actually do a separate contour and a separate bronzer, but this bronze tour look is what I do 99% of the time.